The event and the extent, really, of his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein shows a mix of poor judgment and dishonesty.
Prince Andrew's team tried to hire internet trolls to hassle his accuser. I mean, that is all.
Prince Andrew's downfall came because of his close links and ties to Jeffrey Epstein.
The silence is over, and that's the most dangerous part of all. Because when a man who has already lost everything decides he's done protecting other people's secrets, the fallout doesn't trickle, it detonates. And right now, the one person who understands that better than anyone is Meghan, sitting thousands of miles away in California, watching a palace nightmare begin to stir again, this time with her name hovering dangerously close to the blast radius. Andrew's collapse was loud, humiliating, and global. Overnight, he went from prince to pariah. Title stripped, doors slammed, reputation torched. The Epstein connection didn't just stain him, it erased him. And yet, here's the question no one ever wanted to ask out loud. If Andrew's life was destroyed for being in those circles, how did Meghan walk straight through the same world untouched? Same people. Same timeline, same yachts, same ultra-exclusive ecosystem where nothing is accidental and nobody just ends up there. One royal was publicly executed for proximity. The other rewrote herself as a victim from a Montecito mansion on Netflix. And Andrew knows it. He knows the names. He knows the dates. He knows exactly who was on those yachts and who wasn't. And word coming out of royal circles is simple and terrifying. He's done protecting someone who disappeared the second his life became inconvenient. Because what he's about to say doesn't just embarrass a duchess, it threatens to tear apart the fairy tale version of how she ever entered that family. Before you even get comfortable, understand this. This story isn't about gossip dinners or harmless networking. It's about yacht parties, elite handlers, and access routes that most people will never see, let alone survive. And once you understand that, nothing about Meghan's rise looks accidental ever again. Here's where the ground really starts to shake. Karina Shuliok, Epstein's last girlfriend. A woman who didn't move through the world like everyone else, private jets, private yachts, closed-door circles where everyone already knows everyone. This wasn't celebrity networking. This was a sealed ecosystem. And in 2014, photos surfaced showing Meghan in that exact same scene. Not a similar crowd, not a one-off event. The identical environment, same faces, same lifestyle, same ultra-tight guest list where every single presence is intentional. Let that sit. Andrew lost everything for association alone. No trial, no conviction, just proximity. But when images surfaced of Meghan in the same social orbit, silence. No headlines, no investigations, no raised eyebrows, just crickets. And then there's the detail that refuses to go away. Virginia Roberts knew Meghan.
Meghan Markle be called by Virginia Roberts to testify in a case that had nothing.
This wasn't a blurry party memory. This wasn't we might have crossed paths. There was familiarity, history, a connection rooted in that same world, the very world that destroyed Andrew. Think about the imbalance for a second. The woman whose testimony ended a prince's public life also had personal knowledge of Meghan from that era. And yet the media, the same media that dissected Andrew frame by frame, never touched it. Not once. The palace noticed. Of course they did. This is an institution that doesn't miss anything. Background checks that go back decades. Intelligence briefings most governments would envy. You don't marry into this family without them knowing exactly where you've been and who you've been with. They knew before Harry did. But instead of exposure, there was protection. Because if the palace started pulling that thread, asking how someone from that scene ended up on the Buckingham Palace balcony, they'd be admitting something far worse than ignorance. They'd be admitting failure. Or knowledge. Or both. And neither option was survivable. So they stayed quiet. Andrew burned. Meghan rose. And then comes the architect, Marcus Anderson. If Meghan's story has a hidden blueprint, this is it. Soho House didn't just open doors, it curated access. And Anderson wasn't just a friend. He was the gatekeeper, the connector, the man who decided who belonged where. Toronto, 2011. Soho House opens. Anderson is in control. And almost immediately, Meghan is inside, not as a guest, as a chosen presence. This wasn't about acting anymore. This was about elevation. Billionaires, global elites, private gatherings in New York, London, Istanbul, spaces where resumes don't matter, but proximity does. And here's the part nobody likes to acknowledge. This network overlapped directly with Andrew's. Same clubs, same parties, same faces. This wasn't parallel movement. This was the same social bloodstream.
Because there is no good time to talk about Mr. Epstein.
Which makes the Instagram love story start to wobble. The idea that Harry stumbled upon her profile, fell in love, and rewrote royal history overnight, it's neat, it's modern, it's safe. But Andrew's version is different. He says she was already there, already embedded, already moving through royal adjacent circles long before Harry ever entered the picture. And Anderson knows exactly how, when, and why. Because if this was cultivated, if access was built deliberately, then nothing about this story was spontaneous. It was strategic. And now Andrew, a man stripped of titles and future, is staring at a narrative where he paid the entire price while someone else walked away untouched. And that's where the danger truly begins. Because when the blueprint comes out, when names, venues, and timelines align, the fairy tale doesn't just crack, it collapses. By the time people inside royal circles started whispering that Meghan wasn't new to Andrew's world, that she had already been moving through his crowd long before Harry ever entered the picture, the damage was already done. Because once someone reaches that level of access, the doors don't just open, they remember you. And the Yorks remembered her.
And quite frankly, what they would have done was sought legal advice. The legal advisors would have gone to the Duke of York to get cast iron gas.
Here's the detail most people never heard. The York group knew Meghan first. Not through Harry, not through the engagement, not through the wedding headlines. She was already circulating in Andrew's orbit, already comfortable in the lifestyle that came with massive estates, private gatherings, and an unspoken understanding of how power actually works. And that's when Sarah Ferguson noticed. Fergie has survived the royal machine in ways very few people ever have. Marriage, divorce, scandal, exile. She's seen every version of what happens when ambition meets the institution. And despite decades of separation, she and Andrew remained a unit. Same home, same life, same information pipeline. When Meghan started appearing around their scene, Fergie didn't miss it. She didn't see innocence. She saw familiarity. Someone who knew how to move. Someone who wasn't dazzled by proximity to power because she'd already tasted it. That didn't sit well. Fergie isn't naive and she isn't reckless. She keeps her circle tight for a reason. And as Meghan's presence grew, so did her concern. Not because of jealousy, not because of rivalry, but because she recognized the pattern she'd seen before. People who enter promising change and leave irreversible disruption behind them. And then something shifted. When it became clear that Andrew's world wasn't going to fully open his inner sanctum, the focus moved straight toward Harry. And here's the part that makes everything brutal. Harry had no idea.
Shocking handwritten letter he sent directly to Prince Harry. This is the biggest mistake in royal wedding history.
He didn't know Meghan had already been moving through his uncle's crowd. He didn't know there were reservations. He didn't know that warnings weren't about appearances or prejudice, they were about history. To him, this was new, clean, a fresh start. A woman who understood his pain, mirrored his grievances, and offered escape from a life that never felt like his own. He fell hard. He fell fast. And when relatives tried to slow him down, he didn't hear concern, he heard obstruction. So he cut them off. He pushed forward, and Fergie watched it happen knowing exactly where it began and where it would likely end. For years, Harry burned bridges in Meghan's defense. He gave up his military role, his country, his brother, his place inside the institution. All of it justified in his mind as loyalty, protection, love. But California didn't turn into the refuge he was promised. The mansion, the deals, the freedom, none of it filled the cracks. Because running away doesn't erase the truth, it just delays it. And then the past caught up. According to people close to the situation, Harry was finally confronted with details about Meghan's earlier ties to Andrew's scene. Not rumors, not tabloid whispers, facts. Timelines, overlaps that couldn't be explained away, and it crushed him. Because imagine realizing that the person you sacrificed everything for wasn't just misunderstood by your family, she was already known to them, known in ways you never fully grasped. Andrew became the family's embarrassment, a cautionary tale, the name nobody wanted mentioned. And now Harry is realizing that Meghan didn't just know of that world, she moved inside it. The reports say the distance between them is no longer emotional, it's physical. The same house, separate realities, a marriage straining under the weight of information that should have been disclosed years ago. And while Harry spirals, the palace stays quiet, not because they don't know, because they know too much. King Charles inherited a crown already bruised by scandal. His reign has been about control, stability, moving forward. The last thing he wants is Andrew's shadow crawling back into the headlines. But here's the trap. Exposing Meghan's past connections inevitably resurrects Andrew's scandal. and that forces impossible questions. Who knew what? When? Why was the marriage allowed to happen? That kind of scrutiny doesn't just damage individuals, it threatens the legitimacy of the entire system. So the strategy is delay, silence, wait for the perfect moment. Or better yet, let Andrew do it himself. Because if Andrew talks, the palace can claim shock, distance, surprise, and avoid admitting what they sat on for years. Meanwhile, Meghan's earlier life is being re-examined, especially Toronto. The public saw a hard-working actress on a cable show, weekdays on set, weekends networking, a simple story. But the weekends weren't simple. Private flights, New York, London, exclusive clubs where money doesn't buy entry, only connection does. And that's where Jessica Mulroney comes in. Through her, Meghan accessed a level of influence most actresses never touch. And there was a pattern: intense friendships, rapid closeness, public appearances, and then disappearance. One connection fades, another replaces it. Over and over, strategic movement disguised as social fluidity. And those clubs, they overlapped again. Andrew's venues, Andrew's crowd, Andrew's ecosystem, which brings everything full circle. When Andrew fell, the Yorks reached out, not for publicity, for solidarity, for acknowledgement, for a simple gesture from someone who had once benefited from their proximity. They got nothing, silence. And that was the mistake. Because Andrew and Fergie aren't disposable connections. They are custodians of memory. They know who was present, who moved where, who entered which room, and why. And now Andrew has nothing left to lose. No titles, no future, no reputation to protect, which makes him dangerous. He's tired of double standards, tired of being the sole sacrifice, tired of watching someone from the same circles reinvent herself as a victim while his life sits in ruins. And Meghan knows it. She knows what he can say. She knows what he witnessed. She knows that once timelines align publicly, the story she's told for years collapses under its own weight. Because you can spin motives, you can reframe decisions, but you can't erase presence. And once Andrew speaks, really speaks, there's no closing the vault again. The fairy tale is over, and the man she thought she left behind may be the one who writes the first chapter of how it truly began, of how it truly began, of how it truly began, of